For a moment, as you feel comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes. I invite you to tune into your own presence from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. Is there a lot of noise around you? Is it piercingly quiet? Is there the soft whir of a refrigerator or the ticking of a clock? Can you hear your own breath? I invite you in this moment to imagine yourself and 3 other people who you consider family or community. They may even be 3 people in this very virtual space. Imagine a room in which you and those people are free to be the fullest versions of yourself. You can take up space, you can stretch out bodies, you can laugh. How does your heart beat in this room? Is it fast and quickened? Is it steady? What do you feel in this place? Whisper the names of those there with you. Is there a lot of laughter? Is there a lot of quiet? What colors are present? What does conflict look like? How do you communicate with one another here? How does time move? For the next 10 minutes, I ask that you not forget this room, these people, nor the gift of breath and breathing with each passing second, especially in this world where a great many of us were never meant to survive. In the spirit of survival, I'd like to begin with one of my favorite poems by Audre Lorde titled A Litany for Survival. It goes like this. Also, feel free to open your eyes. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk, for by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hope to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. When I imagine a future softer for all of us, I think of the visions embedded in this poem. Dreams of choice, now breeding futures, sunrises and sunsets, full stomachs, we are loved, and we speak remembering. I've been having a hard time writing a keynote speech about feminist futures because all I can think about is my grandmothers, my aunt, and my cousins, and how angry I am about the ways in which Black women and their bodies are treated in Pittsburgh, where we are from. I'm thinking about that article that came out a few years ago that said that Pittsburgh is one of the worst places for Black women to live. And I'm thinking about how reading that felt like I was spinning forever out of orbit, again and again losing my tongue and my heart and my people. I have been in school away from home for the past 7 years, but all of my limbs, my heart and breath, my histories are tied up in the city of rivers, hills, and smoke. I am thinking about my mother advising me not to come back, for the city does not and cannot and will not love us. I am thinking about feeling tired, broken, and enraged. But keynote speeches are supposed to be hopeful. I am supposed to be hopeful. I am supposed to inspire, but how do you inspire from a place of righteous rage or anger? In the future, may we be enraged and also tender. I'm not asking for permission to be angry. Black folks on the margins are done asking for permissions to be angry. This keynote speech may not inspire you. I'm hoping to free myself from what I'm supposed to do or be in this world that was not built for my being or becoming. I hope you can see me even still. I hope you can be present with yourself even still. I am including the personal here because I believe the personal is political. Because I believe and live in my work and practice as a playwright and theater maker, the reality that our stories are keys to finding pathways and patterns to our collective liberations. 250 years ago, I imagine my great-great-great-great-grandmother, rendered ledger note, gendered and genderless, floating on the Atlantic in some third place between human and property, wanting nothing but home, home, home. In the future, may we never be torn from our homes. 200 years ago, I imagine my great-great-great-grandmother in the sun from dawn to dusk, breaking back, picking, trying to make sense of her place in a world where her own children were not even her own, where her own love was not even her own, where she was both gendered and rendered genderless, without choice, the Carolinas heat making where she belonged. In the future, may not a single Black mother have her children stolen from her. May we have space to define ourselves. 150 years ago, I imagine my great-great-grandmother celebrating Juneteenth barefoot in Reconstruction South, stomping the earth to the rhythm and vowing to make it to the North. I imagine her learning to read. I imagine her scouring newspapers for some love she had and lost. I imagine her loving real hard. In spite of what I'd like to imagine, I imagine her seeing some friend or first love rendered strange fruit. I imagine her putting a single finger on a dusty map, finding Pittsburgh and whispering to herself, like some dream she had and she forgot. I imagine her dreaming about granddaughters and growing old, and yes, dreaming about some money that is her own. I imagine her dreaming about choice, about saying yes and no and having those be uncoerced, entirely and completely her own. I imagine her feeling her first true yes reverberate against her vocal cords, and I imagine the rush she must have felt, like, God, I am alive, God, I am human, God, I am myself. In the future, may Black girls have 1,000 dreams that can come true. In the future, may Black girls yes mean yes and may no's mean no. 100 years ago, I imagine my great-grandmother coming screaming out into the world, the only daughter amongst brothers, an ancestor whose name I know, Flavia, born of the Great Depression, daughter of a postman, Pittsburgh. Story goes that the day after she graduated from Peabody High School, my great-grandmother walked into the office of Miss Alma Illery, a Pittsburgh legend and activist, a community worker and dreamer from the Hill District who worked tirelessly to integrate hospitals. 1938, and my great-grandmother walked into Miss Illery's office. I imagine it was this enormous force of light that blinded her and she shielded her eyes. And when that light subsided, I imagine she saw Alma Illery, who looked up at my great-grandmother and said in a voice that could break the walls down and build them back up again, "What can you do?" And I imagine my great-grandmother thinking about her hands and all the things they were capable of on this planet shaking with change in the middle of 2 world wars. I imagine my great-grandmother falling in love with a soldier. I imagine the two of them moving back to a base in Florida, but my great-grandmother packing up her things and carrying her sons back to Pittsburgh because the South and its racism brought back blood memories she thought her mothers had long buried. Small boys jeered at her young son like he was not human. My great-grandmother did not know a thing about waiting for white people to pick their green beans first, so she got on a train and went back to Pittsburgh, and her husband soon followed. But she would not wait to claim her right to safety or to peace. I imagine her raising her grandsons and granddaughters. I remember Sundays at her home playing with my cousins while she rested her eyes but did not sleep. I remember wondering about that state between sleep and wakefulness. Now, I think about my great-grandmother being the first person I ever saw meditate, slow down time, and breathe. I remember her dying at 90 very peacefully. In the future, may Black women have long, full lives full of love and meaningful work. May we die of natural causes. May we have time to breathe. 80 years ago, I imagine another great-grandmother, Myrna, singing to a sold-out club in the Hill District. In the future, may we be artists. May we claim our right to beauty. 40 years ago, I imagine my grandmother, Alexis, for whom I was given my name, choosing to live out the last years of her life, loving exactly as she pleased, queer and proudly so, with photographs demanding their place in an off-silent archive. In the future, may we love without limits. Yesterday, I spoke to my mother's mother, and as we were talking and laughing as she was assuring me of my power, voice, and blessings, I was thinking about this speech, about what a feminist future looks like for her, for my mother, and for myself, for all the ancestors I've lost too early, for all my friends as we try to find ourselves in these tumultuous 2020s. I cannot answer with any certainty. I can only imagine. And with that imagining, I can only hope to usher forth a world that might be softer for each of us. And sometimes this hope feels futile. This world is not kind to us. And when I say us, I mean all of us on the margins of gender, of class, all of us disenfranchised in our intersectional identities. In the future, may we more boldly say, I don't know. May we let ourselves know with our bodies. For me, in this body, a feminist future is maybe characterized by dreams of choice, now breeding futures, sunrises and sunsets, full stomachs, we are loved and we speak remembering. It is characterized by Black peoples having space to be in the stunning presence of the spectrums of gender identities that live in our bodies. It is characterized by Black peoples having the space to chase after wellness, wholeness, and peace. It is characterized by me learning daily to have grace for myself. It is characterized by a world buoyed up by radical honesty and vulnerability and care just as radical to match. All of this is deeply feminist, deeply womanist, and deeply rooted in all of our liberations, because none of us are free until all of us are free. In the future, may we know this from the bottom of our feet, that we need each other to survive. And so I invite you to turn back to your breath for one more moment. I invite you to recall again those three people sharing space with you in the fullest versions of yourselves. I invite you to imagine all of the people who have lived for the four of you to live. I invite you to imagine the lessons we can garner from remembering towards a future. And I invite all of us to make space for the places where we are angry, sad, confused, and where there are no answers. In those moments, it is perhaps of utmost importance to breathe. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. I have chills. Thank you for your power and your words and your story and your bravery. Knowing that you're a GirlGov alumni gives me much inspiration for this program and the collective movement that we have to come.